Welcome back, everybody. There is a growing movement that believes being more mindful as a leader could enhance your performance. But can a kinder, gentler CEO be effective? Some say absolutely. Bill George is a professor at Harvard Business School and the former chairman and CEO of Medtronic. He is a champion of the introspective practices and created a course at Harvard called Authentic Leadership Development. Jeff Sonnenfeld is the Senior Associate Dean for Executive Programs at Yale University School of Management. Of course, Ariana is our guest host today, and she is still with us. Bill, let me start with you. You have been a champion of this entire mindfulness argument. What is that argument, and why don't you tell about how you think it makes a difference in leaders?
Well, we live in a very frenetic society. It's 24/7. I must confess I'm 24/7 involved in all kinds of things coming at it. And there's a lot of stress. How do you maintain resilience in this way? And I found mindfulness the very best way to do it. I started meditating back in 1975 when I was very young. At the time, I was extremely frenetic. I think it's helped me calm down, have more clarity and focus, and frankly, be a lot more productive and a better leader with the people I work with. And we've now been teaching this at Harvard Business School. We have some 800 students every year that go through it, MBAs and executives. And it's having a very big impact. We don't teach meditation,
yeah, I was gonna say, what
but we
do
do
you
talk about mindfulness and authenticity. And how do you find kind of the passion, the power within you to be an effective leader, and how do you convey that to your people?
How do you do that with real examples? Because it sounds very touchy-feely. How do you make the students actually think about this in real terms?
Well, I think you need an introspective practice, and then I think you need honest feedback. But I think every day we need to pull aside for 20 minutes and just think about what is it that's really important today. I find when I do this is when I get my greatest clarity and most creativity. And if you don't have some form of practice, maybe it's not meditation, maybe it's journaling or a diary or praying or talking to a loved one, but something where you really think about and focus on what's important, because you can't just be scatterbrained all day long and be productive. You can do it.
But you can do that on a treadmill, right? I don't. Or what about?
Yes.
I swim.
You can
for
take a long walk.
Yeah, when you swim,
no doubt.
It's the same thing, right? And it's all about
it is the same thing.
You know what is interesting, and Bill, you've been involved in this for so many years, but what is interesting is that there seems to be a kind of tipping point, because in Davos this year, for example, you saw suddenly all these sessions around mindful leadership. You saw a Buddhist monk, Matthew Ricard, walking by teaching meditation to CEOs. You saw Mark Williams, a professor of clinical psychology from Oxford, talking about mindfulness. So, Bill, tell us a little bit about what do you see as this kind of critical mass tipping point around this issue, around in American corporations?
Well, Ariana and I, you recall, we were together doing a session with the young global leaders, and they were really caught up in it. But I think now we're seeing many more American corporations. Here locally in Minneapolis, we have General Mills has been a pioneer with mindful leadership, Target, Cargill, on the West Coast. You have eBay and Genentech, and Google, of course, has been a real pioneer. And on the East Coast, you have Aetna, who Mark Bertorelli's been doing actually studies on this. So I see it's happening in the corporate world. And so one reason it's happening, it's going to improve your long-term bottom line. I can't speak to quarterly results, but I'll tell you it's going to improve the long-term.
You heard Bill George say pray. I can't imagine the Huffington Post would allow anything on there that praying counts for meditation.
Oh, my God, are you serious? We have a fantastic religion section where we cover prayer, where we cover...
For the people still clinging to guns and religion?
There's absolutely...
Right.
No difference between prayer and meditation.
I'm going to look at it. I'm going to look.
No difference at all.
Jeff, do you buy into this?
Believe it or not, I do. I often come in as a cynic in the new thing of fads, and I don't think that's what's going on here. Of course, we all remember the art of Japanese management and everybody getting onto Kaizen practices, and there's a book an hour coming out on corporate purpose these days, and empowerment issues and quality of work-life issues that sometimes get cheap in the way they're handled. The whole SLM, self-directed, mind-expanding things we've done in the 60s, something different here. And it's important that this not just be classified with the wisdom of the East. There's a lot of this in the West, too. Jean-Paul Sartre in the 1950s was warning us about the mindless happiness of a stone, and that we need to somehow get perspective. There's a lot of the great companies that Bill and Ariana have talked about. You add to the list of General Motors in Bill's own hometown, General Mills rather, of course, as well as companies such as Google and others that are perhaps more cutting edge in terms of technology and style. But there are CEOs, Rick Goings of Tupperware. Of course, Bill is a great example. We have Sheryl Sandberg, who was a yoga instructor. Dan Loeb was a big yoga fanatic and continues to be. Married one.
Jeff.
The way we
But hold on. All those people that you're mentioning, and this is the problem, and I'm curious what Bill thinks on this too. I talked to Ariana earlier about just the culture of an institution. When you're a CEO, you manage your own schedule, you manage your own time. If you need to take 20 minutes to go meditate, you can probably organize around it. If you're a young analyst on Wall Street, for example, or you're an engineer that has a project that's due tomorrow at 1 p.m., it's not so clear that you can just decide, okay, you know what, I got to go take my nap now. I have to then meditate, and then I got to go to the gym, and Andrew, I can tell my boss, you know what, it's just fine.
Andrew, that's a really important issue. We do see a lot of these exciting new interventions that are often, as Bill said, he named the champions, and he's a champion. Was this sustainable? Did this continue at Medtronic after he left? And Bill, have you brought it into ExxonMobil? Have you brought it, have you brought it in to Goldman Sachs and places where you're involved? It's hard if it doesn't take root in the culture. Here at Yale, we teach it. We have an anthropologist of all things who teaches yoga. It's voluntary. It's very important, yoga and meditation. Rodrigo Canales. We get scores of students coming out for it. Embedded in the MBA curriculum, we have a 2-year leadership development program. A guy named Tom Coldis, a general who was in charge of all leadership development at West Point, in charge of the whole behavioral sciences program. Through a lot of coaching, an awful lot of exercises, and in fact, exercises on emotional intelligence. Our new president, who's an old colleague of mine here, Peter Salovey, actually coined the term emotional intelligence. There are tools out there. There are ways of getting 360 perspectives.
And Andrew, I think
we actually get practicums in the
Andrew, I think that you need. If I can interrupt here, I think you need to have practices every day. I always meditated early in the morning and then late in the afternoon or evening when you have time. And I stayed focused. And by the way, I got a lot more energy to go hard till midnight. So I found it increased my energy and productivity.
Swimming, if you do it the right way, running, there's an awful lot of vast literatures on different forms of exercise that can do it.
Gentlemen, thank you both very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Becky.
When we come back.